As a reminder, please mute yourself. Give it one moment and we'll get started. Good afternoon. This is a hearing before the Licensing Board for the City of Boston. Today is Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. Today's hearing is a mandatory informational hearing before the Licensing Board for all North End licensees participating in the 2021 outdoor dining season. This is not a disciplinary hearing, but is meant to provide an opportunity to review the rules and regulations regarding outdoor dining, the city's expectations regarding outdoor dining, and enforcement efforts for the 2021 season. Today's hearing is being conducted pursuant to certain temporary amendments of the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. This hearing will be recorded and will be posted on the City of Boston's website. Before I introduce Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce and the members of the board, I want to recognize some individuals who are in attendance. I want to recognize John Romano from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, Michael Bonetti from Councilor Lydia Edwards' office. I believe we also have representatives joining us who are currently logging on from Chairman Mikowitz's office and Senator Boncouri's office. Again, please mute yourself. From the licensed premise unit of the Boston Police Department, we have Lieutenant Troy, Sergeant Gallagher, and Detective Hernandez. We also have Chris English, Chief of Staff of the Inspectional Services Department, and Dan Pendergast, the Commissioner of ISD. Again, please mute yourself. And we want to begin by saying thank you to the entire outdoor dining team. And I will now turn this over to Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce.
Thank you, Leslie. My name is Kathleen Joyce. I'm Chair of the Licensing Board, and I'd also like to introduce my fellow commissioners of the Licensing Board, Commissioner Liam Curran and Commissioner Kiana Saxon. We're really excited to be here with you today. We're days away from the North End's outdoor dining beginning. And we understand that this has been a lifeline for your restaurants throughout the city as well. Your success is our success. Because the North End is so unique, it's a neighborhood in the most densely populated with restaurants in our entire city, we had to take this extra time to make sure we got it right. We're committed to working with you to make 2021's outdoor dining season a success, not just for the residents, but also for the residents who live in your neighborhood as well. We want to make it clear that the 2021 season will incorporate lessons learned from last year, and that's why you will see restaurants occupying different spaces than they applied for. We did our very best to help every single restaurant out while balancing the needs of the neighborhood. And we need to remind everyone that the use of the public way is a privilege. The public way is to be shared with the residents, visitors, other businesses, and other events as the city reopens, such as feasts and processions. This is a neighborhood, and the residents have a right to their quiet enjoyment and their quality of life. This year's review took into consideration important factors such as the quality of life of the residents, the public safety, and emergency vehicle access and accessibility issues. We are here to help you, and we're looking forward to working with you over the next few months.
Thank you. And again, I just also want to recognize Todd Liming, who is the Chief Engineer for the Public Improvement Commission, and Rebecca Fu, who is our Director of Operations. And I can assure you that this outdoor dining program would not exist without their hard work. So thank you, both Rebecca and Todd. If everyone could please take a moment and utilize the chat function to put in your name, your restaurant's name, and your address, that would be very helpful, so I do not make everyone sit through the roll call that we had to go through last year, where I butchered every restaurant's name in the North End. So now we're going to move on to some of the items we wanted to discuss today, and then we're going to open this up to questions and comments from the restaurants. So we want to make clear that the interdepartmental outdoor dining team spent a significant amount of time reviewing all the applications, and we really appreciate the members of the team as well as the elected officials and their staff, because we obviously need to look at the North End as a whole, as opposed to on a one-by-one basis. We believe that we have a plan for the North End that balances all of the various interests in the neighborhoods, including residents, businesses, as well as visitors. You've all received the guidance from the board and the outdoor dining team, and you're obligated to read, understand, and abide by that guidance as it may be amended based on incoming public health metrics. Please ensure that you read that thoroughly. We're going to go over some of the most important points and some of the items that we received the most complaints on last year. However, it is your responsibility to review this guidance. You are restricted to the specific area for which you are approved in the email approval you received, and in many cases, the area that is spray painted. One of the biggest issues we saw last year was restaurants, whether intentional or not, slowly creeping outside of the areas for which they were approved, and that had a negative impact on pedestrian access as well as disability access. That will absolutely not be tolerated this year, and you will face disciplinary action. Again, just like the 2020 outdoor dining season, there is no entertainment permitted. And that includes opening your windows and allowing sound to emanate outside of the licensed premise. This was one of the big trade-offs we made with the community because there is no community process to review each of these. And it's important to ensure that the residents have a positive quality of life. The closing hours will remain on weekdays, 10 p.m., all patrons off the licensed premise by 10:30, and that's not 11, there's only a half-hour window. And weekends, the closing hour is 11, all patrons off by 11:30. Again, only a half hour. It is your responsibility to ensure that your space is clean. You need to sweep your space and the sidewalk and ensure it is clean at all times. When not in operation, all of your tables, chairs, and umbrellas must be secured. They may not be left out for people to sit in during non-operational hours. You are not permitted to allow lines to form outside of the licensed premise, and this is something that's been implemented citywide. It is your responsibility, and we understand that it can be a challenge, to ensure that patrons do not create a line outside the licensed premise. You need to find out what works for you as an operator to ensure that doesn't happen. That could be telling people they have to come back in 20 minutes. That could be taking their cell phone. That could be requiring reservations only. But we are still in the middle of a public health crisis, and it is essential that you do not allow lines to form. There can be no pets on your temporary outdoor patios other than certified service animals. Emotional support animals are not certified service animals. If you have questions about that, please reach out to the board and we can provide more details. You must ensure that social distancing and mask wearing remains in place. There is still a limit of a maximum of 6 patrons per table and a separation of 6 feet between table unless you have established a non-porous barrier, such as plexiglass. Again, as the chairwoman noted, if feast processionals and other special events are going to be allowed based on public health metrics, you will be required to share the public way, and you may be required to move your outdoor dining area to allow for those events. This is a sharing of the street and the public way. No one has a right to the public way. In terms of enforcement, last year the board very specifically focused on education, and that was due to the ongoing public health emergency. This year, there will be a very serious effort to ensure that all of these rules and regulations are enforced. As I mentioned before, the creeping outside of the space for which you're approved to utilize will not be tolerated. Failure to abide by the COVID-19 and social distancing guidelines will not be tolerated. Unpermitted entertainment or violation of the decibel requirements will not be permitted. We will continue as the board to conduct random inspections, as will other city departments, to ensure all licensees are in compliance. We will also respond to all complaints received by the board and the city. We are currently holding emergency Monday morning hearings before the board. If you are issued a violation over the weekend, you will be required to appear before the board that Monday, and the board has been issuing violations and suspensions. It's important to note, again, that the outdoor dining is a privilege, not a right, and it can be revoked by the city at any time without notice. It's also important to note that if you do not abide by all of the rules and regulations of this board, as well as all the other city departments, you're not only putting your outdoor dining at risk for the remainder of the season, you're also putting your annual license at risk. I now want to ask the licensed premise unit of the Boston Police Department to speak to their experience from last year.
Hi, Sergeant Detective Gallagher here. Nice to talk to everybody again. Our number one complaints, and we usually get them via the mayor's hotline that came in last year, were, as Leslie previously stated, that some of these patios seem to get bigger as the year went along. Please stick with your original blueprint. If there's anything you want to do and try to change, now's probably the time to do it. I can't guarantee it'll happen, but just don't take it upon yourself to add another table in, a couple more chairs, because the residents notice. They call the mayor's hotline frequently, and that's one of their biggest pet peeves. The other one's smoking on the patios. You can't smoke on the patios. A lot of people think they're outside and they can just light up. That's another one of the complaints we usually get, as well as pets. Dogs seem to find their way into all these patios, especially in the afternoon hours, and it's prohibited against the violation. It's on the the health code laws. Service animals only. It can't be, like Leslie said, an emotional support dog. So those are the biggest ones that we usually see. So if you just stick with those guys, any questions, we'll be out there. Please ask us. We don't have the answer, we'll get it for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant. Lieutenant, did you want to add anything?
Just quite simply that we will be out there, and we hope for and expect the level of cooperation that we received throughout the entire pandemic from the restaurateurs down in the North End, and it's not an adversarial relationship, and we really appreciate your cooperation and hope for it during the summer also.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And again, we understand that this is a lifeline. We want to make this an incredibly successful outdoor dining season, but everyone also has to keep in mind that this is also a neighborhood, and we're trying to balance the interests of all of the invested parties. We're now going to move to any questions, and please feel free to utilize the chat. And then I will ask if anyone wants to use the raised hand feature or to unmute yourself. The first question that we received was about the 6 feet of separation. I think we get that a lot more from residents than we do from restaurants, because I think you all are very familiar with the guidelines. The 6 feet of separation is from table edge to table edge. It's not from chair to chair. So please ensure that you are making sure that your tables remain 6 feet apart at a minimum, unless you have installed a non-porous barrier such as plexiglass.
Leslie, I just want to echo that. We received an email question this week asking if we would consider, from one of the restaurant owners, if we would consider moving the 6 feet to 3 feet. I think they were expecting the CDC guidelines to be changing, but that is not a decision of the licensing board. That's a decision of public health in Boston. And I think every place right now is still 6 feet. So I want to remind everyone there's no exceptions for that. If you do have porous barriers outside, we would have to have had approved them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathleen. Are there any questions, any other questions from any of the licensees? Not seeing any. Warren has raised his hand. Warren, you can unmute yourself.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
I'm just concerned about the dogs. I had a lot of problem with people with that emotional support dog. What kind of paperwork do they need with the dog? Does the dog have to have a vest on, or what is the procedure? Because that was like a thing with young people with these emotional support dogs that I don't think were really necessary.
I'm actually going to ask Rebecca Fu on our team. Rebecca, if you don't mind unmuting yourself, because I think you're better versed in this than I am.
So according to the health code and state law, you wouldn't ask for any paperwork. You can ask them, is this dog for a disability? And if they say yes, you trust their word. You don't ask about the disability, don't ask for paperwork. That's basically it.
That's all you can really ask.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these emotional support dogs, it's very easy to register a dog as an emotional support dog. It's just a matter of paperwork online. So people do sort of bend the rules there, but it's, as a restaurant owner, it's your responsibility to ask if it's a service animal.
Hi, Kathleen.
Yep.
We usually ask them, you can't ask for the American Disabilities what handicap the person has, but what we've been told to do, what we're trained to do, is ask them what service the dog provides. And the people are very forthcoming. They'll say, it's my emotional support dog. And some of them will even pull out a card. And I believe, as Rebecca stated, that's not covered under that act. It's got to be a handicap, like a physical disability or a sensory issue that the dog takes care of.
And
Do they
again,
have to have a card?
No, I don't know if there is a card. I mean,
no, you don't have to require documentation. And again, we're just asking you to do, to make a good faith effort. Obviously, you're not a mind reader. You don't know if someone's lying to you, but if you just do your due diligence to ask that question, what is the role of this dog or animal? And if they say emotional support dog, then you know that that's not permitted. But again, we understand that that's a difficult.
So we have to take their word for it.
Yes, you do. Just as we do. Yep, just as the sergeant or the lieutenant would as well.
Thank you for the clarification.
well,
In addition, the question of what to do when you're confronted with a service animal or an emotional support animal is something that you probably would have to deal with regardless, patio or indoor or outdoor. And it really is a matter of legal advice because it is a sensitive legal issue. But if someone tells you it's an emotional support animal, you can tell them that doesn't qualify because we've told you that doesn't qualify.
I think Sergeant Gallagher had some examples last year in a different neighborhood when there was like 4 or 5 dogs at one time with a whole group of people brunching, and they came right out and told you that they're emotional support dogs and they had bought the IDs online, and
That's
then
correct.
you could educate them that those were not allowed.
and we were in the garden last night, and there was one in the garden. And the girl and garden staff didn't know. They just weren't sure, and they kind of backed off a little bit. But these are the right questions. And if they're very forthcoming, they'll tell you it's an emotional support dog, it's for anxiety. But I mean, obviously, if there's a handicap, a sight issue, or a PTSD issue, that's going to be pretty more evident than the 25-year-old with a golden retriever sitting at your patio having cocktails. And that's what we were seeing last year.
Yes.
Thank you, Sergeant. I
You're
see.
welcome.
I received a message from Damien DePaula. Damien, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Okay, cool. So last year, during maybe it was this initial meeting, I had suggested a couple of things that the city should help us with, and that's slowing down traffic on Hanover Street. So we're going to be doing our due diligence, and and I have to say, I think everybody on your staff has done a great job. But I also want to commend all the restaurants in the neighborhood that have been grouped maybe as we're like doing things wrong and stuff. But I think for the most part, everybody did a good job last year. So everyone, the city and us, we all did a good job. Having said that, I suggested speed bumps. That was a no-go, and I think some of the gentlemen that are on this meeting on that one. How about signs? Just some big signs, like so that cars know they shouldn't be racing down the street, and the motorcycles. Or how about one of those speed limit lights? Let's talk about safety. I mean, we're talking about dogs. People are going to tell you they're service animals, and we have to accept that. But what can we do about safety? And there has to be something that will slow down the cars and the motorcycles that come down this street, and something has to be done. What can we do to slow that traffic down? What can we all do?
Thank you, Damien. And we can definitely relay that to the Boston Transportation Department. And again, we're here to work with you and think creatively. As the chairwoman said, we're learning from last year. This was obviously all new to all of us. So we're looking to adapt as we move forward.
Les, I can jump in just real quickly on that. Last year, we did coordinate with the Mass Department of Transportation, and they were kind enough to lend us 3 very large changeable message signs, the kind that you see on the side of the freeway. And we located those at the beginnings of Hanover Street and Salem Street, in those flashed messages notifying motorists of the upcoming cafe zones. We are going to talk with MassDOT again to see if we can borrow those signs once again this season. I don't know if that's going to be able to happen or not, but that is something that we're considering.
What about slower? What about smaller ones that are spaced every couple of blocks or something? I saw those last year, and those were great. But for some reason, once they cross that block, those signs are out of their heads.
Yep, and last year we actually also did put up a number of smaller, not enforceable speed limit signs, and the transportation department will consider doing that same thing again this year.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd. I see that Modern Pastry has a hand raised.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to know what the exact dimensions needed to be for the non-porous barriers between tables, like what height and length they are supposed to be.
They have to be a minimum of, depending on where they're positioned, 6 feet high. But I would suggest that because we would need to look at exactly what you're proposing, reach out to the licensing board and we'll put that email in the chat and we can discuss your plan with you and make sure that what you're looking to purchase would actually allow you to space people closer.
Okay, great, thank you.
I see Ann Altieri.
Oh, wait a minute.
You were muted.
Hi, how are you? George Mendoza, Vinoteca de Monica on Richmond Street. Thank you for the opportunity to open up again this summer. One of the things that really surprises me about the meeting and the tone of the meeting is that we're talking about a neighborhood that there are two different components to it. One, the commercial part of the neighborhood, and the other one, the residential. We're a mixed-use neighborhood. Everybody who moves into the neighborhood should be aware of that and is aware of that. I think that the neighbors, that the businesses in the neighborhood have done an incredible job in trying to survive this pandemic. Our survivor is essential for the neighborhood to survive. Real estate prices are dropping rapidly. People are leaving the neighborhood. We have over 1,000 apartments that are empty right now. Okay, so, we need your help, but the whole neighborhood needs your help. If the neighbors believe that the only reason why things are going to change is because the restaurants are going to be quieter, that's not going to happen. Okay. When it comes to the speed that people are driving around, we do need more enforcement. When it comes to the issues with the animals that people want to bring into your stores and to your restaurant, it's impossible for us to enforce it. How are you going to punish a business owner who's having an argument with somebody over the dog? I particularly don't want any dogs in my business. Obviously, people who have a handicap need to have their handicapped dog with them. But
we didn't say we're going to punish you over. We didn't say we're going to punish you over people who have dogs. We're just asking you to ask the right questions. You can ask, is this an emotional support dog? And to address the noisy restaurants, we hope you're really busy. But if the sound emanating from your restaurant with the windows open, you will be written up and your license could be suspended.
No, understood.
We discussed this with you before.
Understood. I think all of us are trying to follow the rules. Okay.
Hope so.
But unfortunately, I'm sorry. Let me speak. Unfortunately, okay. We all got shut down over a pandemic. Most of us lost millions of dollars, not a couple of $100,000, millions of dollars. Many of us haven't been part of our payrolls for a year. We lost our livelihoods.
Mr. Mendoza, do you have
Unfortunately, no. Excuse me.
Do you have a question for the board?
I do have. Yeah, no. I have a comment. I said I had a comment. I didn't say I had a question. I asked to make a comment, and the comment is again. All right. We want to work with you. Okay, I want to work with you guys. I always want to work with the city. I try to do my due diligence to comply with everything, and my record shows it. I've been in business for 25 years. Okay, but we are in a very tough situation. I don't know if you noticed some of the faces. We've had old age and incredibly. Okay, we my enterprise on Richmond Street lost over $2 million worth of revenue last year. Okay, and we are in a pandemic. All right, but we're having a meeting 2 days before we're allowed to put our patios out. We received the instructions last Friday. Many of us haven't received the instructions yet. Okay. We had an agreement on what we could put out last year. We changed it again, which puts an incredible expense added to our loss.
I'm going to interrupt right here. Last year, this is a privilege. We didn't have an agreement. We gave you the right to use temporary space of the cities. We told you all along that was not guaranteed for this year. We were not able to approve the North End licenses before now because we had to look at it as an entire neighborhood. The public safety issues that were able to be brushed aside last year could not be brushed aside this year. There are actually licensees that do not have outdoor dining space in front of their restaurant.
I agree.
If you would like to talk about your specific space, give us a call at the board. We're happy to talk to you.
I'm like I'm telling you. But my issue is this. Okay. We're going to embark ourselves in the same thing that we did last year, okay? And we're going to have, there's a lot of people, from the meeting that you had.
We didn't promise you anything.
No,
we're going to move the hearing along.
But
we have 76 people on the call right now.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Are there any other questions?
Frank Polino would like to speak.
All right, Mr. Polino, go ahead.
Okay. Can anybody hear me? I'm unmuted.
Yes, you're unmuted.
I can't show my picture because, I can't show my picture. I don't know how to do it. But Leslie or the board, everyone in charge, me as a restaurateur, I was very appreciative of what we got last year. I'm sure everybody else is too. We don't feel like, we were very grateful. It was a privilege. We appreciate that. And the state, the senators came out, the governor will do it again in the state. So we appreciate it we've done. But I got here the two big curveballs now. Little Prince, I was under the impression I was going to get Little Prince again, same as I had last year. And the midnight hour, Friday night, John contacted me, says, no, we're not going to close, we're not going to close Prince Street. So me and I too, we really got left with very little. So I got now 2 spaces in front of Garden Court. Hopefully with John's help, I need to speak to Mama Maria if they'll keep that area a little bit clean. It's not a very desirable area, as you know. So it's okay with the inconvenience. I don't really don't have much of a case of Polinos. It's unfortunate. I have a restaurant on the street that has no parking. It's very tight. For safety reasons, the fire department feels, hey, we have got to shut it down. Unfortunately for me, though, I've allocated funds based on last year's sales, which I got over 60% to normal. So I thought maybe this year, maybe now that they're going to come inside as well, I'll be at 70%. So now I'm still going to be impacted. For me, it's going to be COVID. To me, COVID is going to continue because I got a feel in that area, no fault of the city, just the way my restaurant happens to be located. So I'll do the best I can. I think we'll be okay. We'll survive. I got some PPP money. And when it runs out, if I can't make it, some of my guys will hit the unemployment line. Hopefully not. I'm confident. I have another restaurant here on Hanover Street. This is where my issue comes in. And I need the board to help me in this because I've stonewalled Mr. Romano. No fault of his. Maybe that's the way these things were done. And once more, and I'm not asking for a lot. Because so that's your last year.
Mr. Polino, I'm going to stop you right there. The board is working very, very closely with Mr. Romano. And if you have questions about specifically what you were approved for or not approved for, please reach out to the board and we'll have that discussion with you. And
in closing, Leslie, I'm only asking for 4 to 6 feet. That's it. I'm not trying to encroach on anybody. It's an area that's been allocated for loading zone and pickup, which is only one restaurant that's pickup 2 p.m. and loading zone ends at noon. I'm only asking 4 to 5 feet. So because if I have to put all that extra space into the dining area, then basically I have no business 12 to 2. Really, the 35 feet that I have now, it turns to 70 feet, but not to 2 p.m.
Mr. Polino, again.
I'll address you directly at a later date.
Yes, please. Please reach out to the licensing board. We will discuss with you.
I appreciate your time. Okay.
All right.
I just want to comment that Mr. Polino is not even allowed to have outdoor dining on Little Prince Street because the fire department started.
Yes, I know that. That's unfortunate.
And I want to thank you for working with us. Yeah. Thank you very much for understanding that.
Thank you very much. Peter from Tresca. Peter, could you?
Yeah, question was, is that there's no signs on Hanover Street designating the space currently. Is there any plans to keep people from parking? We're loading in our perimeter barriers tomorrow. There's no signs up on the street, I'm told, as of this afternoon. How we like, keeping people not parking there and designating our space between now and Thursday?
I believe that they're in the process of dispatching the signage. I know John Romano was on before. John, are you there?
I'm back here. Thank you, Leslie. So actually, as of this afternoon, signage went up on both Hanover Street and Salem Street for cafe zones. So those streets have signage now that we can start enforcing on April 1st. So up until April 1st, if there are spots that are open, you're able to move your patios out in the designated areas. After April 1st, you can contact the Boston Transportation Department and we'll work with you to get cars removed if necessary.
So let me understand, there's signs going up now. And
they are already currently up. So if you actually go on Hanover Street and Salem Street right now, they've been up since about 1 o'clock today, maybe a little bit before that.
Okay, great. Thanks for your help.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And you can utilize, if the space is free in front of your licensed premise, you can utilize the furniture to begin saving that space. One thing, and I forgot to mention that we got a number of complaints over last year that came up on one of our recent community meetings. If you are not in operation, you cannot use that space as a parking spot. We got a number of complaints last year about licensees who've been given temporary extensions, moving the tables and chairs and parking their vehicles there. That is absolutely not acceptable. If you are doing that, you will face disciplinary action, including the suspension or revocation of your outdoor dining. So we just want to make that very clear.
And we do expect to take a harder look at our punishments, or I don't even want to say punishment, but our Monday morning disciplinary hearings, because we have to. This is the second year we've asked the neighborhood to be open-minded about this outdoor dining without a public process. So Monday morning hearings, if there is a violation that is shown and the board votes that there's a violation, you will see temporary outdoor spaces suspended. I expect, if the north end is anything like it was last year, I would expect there to be temporary outdoor suspensions. So we're asking you for your cooperation. We're asking you to work with our inspectors. When they come in and tell you that something's wrong, be respectful and listen to what they're advising you to do.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Are there any other questions? All right, again, the licensing board, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, please state your name for the record.
My name is Frank Mendoza from Monica's on 67 Prince Street and 130 Salem Street. I asked my liaison for a request that I can get the space that I had originally from last year. And I want to know, Kathleen, like if I do want to request, how do I ask for one? Or how do I go around doing it? Should I email you? Because when I asked John Romano for a request, he automatically shut me down.
Right. So what the plan that John has rolled out for the entire north end is final. There'll be no changes. You can't pick a different spot.
I can't
The
even
north end is
ask for a
different.
request.
I think last year, did your restaurant take over like a handicap space or something?
No, I
I
didn't
think
take.
we had some issues last year, so it's final.
I didn't take over any space, Kathleen.
Okay, well, it's final. You can request it, but I don't think we're going to be able to accommodate it. We've spent hours just on the north end plan. And what you see is the final plan.
And just to be very clear, the suggestion that John Romano did not take everything into consideration and work diligently in that neighborhood is offensive at best. Mr. Romano and our outdoor dining team has literally walked this entire neighborhood over and over again to ensure the most equitable and fair outdoor dining experience, allowing everyone to have the use of the public way. Again, this is a privilege. It is not a right. You're being given public space for free to make a profit. We have another question from Gianni Frateroli. Could you please address why certain restaurants with full liquor licenses are only allowed to serve beer and wine? That's a really good question. If you are using contiguous space, it means that it's contiguous meaning touching. It's an extension of your license. If you are using non-contiguous space, which means there's a break to another block or there is a street in between, it means it's non-contiguous, which means we are using a series of special one-day licenses. And we understand this is very in the weeds in terms of the liquor licensing laws, but we are limited to beer and wine for those spaces, and there's nothing we can do about it. That is Massachusetts general law. We know that with some of the relief packages, it was discussed about amending that, but it never happened, so the board has no flexibility there. Are there any other questions? Oh, Sergeant?
Yeah, just one question, or actually one comment. If the premises could keep their footprint of their outdoor patio close by, sometimes we show up and we say, hey, can we see your plot plan for outside? And they don't have it. We don't know what they have. If they can keep all the appropriate paperwork close by so we can look at it and verify that it is where it is, it'll make the whole process a lot easier.
Thank you, Sergeant. And that's actually a very good reminder that you are required to keep a site plan at the licensed premise. And also the sergeant and the team does have access to the full spreadsheet that our outdoor dining team created. Mr. Mendoza, you have again requested to ask a question. You need to unmute yourself.
Well, I was muted before I could ask a question. You guys you just told somebody before me to work with you guys to ask. So I'm asking. You guys don't even know my request, or does Kathleen already know my request?
I know you want the space you had last year. There were various reasons why we weren't able to give that to you.
Okay, so
We'll have, we can get the traffic.
Why
department to come in.
was it? Because it's a handicap spot? That handicap spot was granted to somebody 25 years ago.
It's a city handicap spot. We'll take a look at it. I know there was, we actually
No, but
did.
why can't somebody come and look at it? Why can't somebody come and look at my corner?
Oh, we
That's all
do.
I'm asking.
Why don't you submit it to us in writing? We'll be happy to. Todd,
That's what you're telling me. So that's what I have to do, right? I have to put it to you in writing?
yes.
That's
Why
what
don't
I'm
you-
asking. That's all I'm asking because I got shut down in the middle of the street the other day before I could even ask the question. So that's what I'm
Right.
asking.
The handicap
That's all-
spots,
that's all-
we
that's
made
all I
a
want.
commitment to the neighborhood not to move handicap spots.
I know, but there's a corner there that you can move the handicap spot very easy. So
I don't think moving a handicap spot is that easy. I think if you just take the
do you know
license
the
premise
corner?
they gave you, it's better.
Have you ever seen the corner? If you came, I could show you the corner.
Again,
I don't get into parking lanes and sidewalks. I do the alcohol licensing.
So then you tell me that you want to work with me, but you really don't want to work.
Again,
Why don't you submit it in writing and we'll have the people that take a look at handicap spots give us some comment and feedback.
and this is not a call to discuss individual requests. Please contact the board. We will review. There is no guarantee to what you're going to be given. Again, this is the public way. Are there any other questions from individuals who have not previously asked a question? Pablo Rojas, please unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you, Improv Asylum. I was curious to know if there have been discussions for the consideration of the safety of social distancing and pedestrians about closing down Hanover in terms of so that more people can walk maybe in the middle of the streets and just have more of a promenade of sorts, allowing people to, or even maybe just making it a one-way street temporarily, just to kind of, minimize interactions, but also help people spread out. And to reduce the noise and congestions of people cruising back and forth on motorcycles and things like that, since that's always been being brought up. I'm also considering, because of the fire department is on that street and is also vital, that truck often barrel down that road very closely to those barriers. So there's always a risk there of a barrier being hit. So just curious if that has been discussed. Is that an option to discuss, things of that nature?
Thank you. That has absolutely been discussed. And I'm going to, John Romano, to call you up, but you know the neighborhood much better than I do. But I can assure you, and John will elaborate, that it has been discussed at all levels fairly extensively.
Yeah, so I can say that we had looked at it last year. It had been looked at again this year for it, but it is not feasible at this time to close Hanover Street or any street that's in this North End area for there. It has to do with various reasons of traffic patterns, as well as, like you had mentioned, emergency vehicle access to and around the rest of the neighborhood. So it's not something that we will be doing this year.
And the Boston Transportation Department and the Boston Fire Department actually discussed it extensively and could not come to an agreement on a way to do it safely and equitably. We received a request from Adrian Federico. In order to have enforcement on Hanover, can you have an active patrol? So the license premise unit of the licensing board covers the entire city. And as you know, District A1 is an extensive district. So we cannot, our resources do not allow us to have a dedicated North End patrol. And that would also not be fair to the other restaurants throughout the city. So we appreciate the suggestion. And again, the licensees are always have the option of pooling your resources and looking at potentially hiring a security company or something like that. But the city cannot dedicate an active enforcement patrol to North End only. Right. Are there any other individuals who have not previously asked questions? All right, again, thank you. We appreciate everyone taking the time. We're here for any questions and we look forward to another successful year of sharing the streets. Thank you very much.
Thank you.